What's going on, YouTube? This your boy Haywood Haynes. This is another installment of Facts Over Feelings. To get feelings at the door so we can get to the facts. And this is gonna be the hardest video that I think that I've ever done because for me, I'm so emotionally attached to the information that I'm about to present. Obviously, because it happened in my own backyard, and it's a lot of things going on right now. And I think that hopefully this helps you to make an intelligent decision. And that's because that's what we want, right? That's what we need to do. We want to have confidence in the decision that we make, for good, bad, or whatever. We want to rest easy that we've done all we can do because we gathered all the information that we felt like we could gather in the time in which we had in order to make the decision that we made, right? And, it made me think about my son. I had a chick send me a photo of him, and she's a mutual friend of me and the mother of my child. And it was just interesting because obviously I haven't seen him in 7 months, right? So of course I'm overwhelmed. I see him, I start tear jerking and all of that. And the thing I would think about when I seen this photo was when it took me back to the day that I was there every day of her pregnancy. You know what I'm saying? The whole 9 months. Every day I was there, and shortly before, 2.5 years that we were dating before she got pregnant, she had a lot of, gastrointestinal issues and stuff. She really couldn't keep food down, because she had a poor diet, and, she was hospitalized frequently and stuff. So, I made it my job to try to, motivate her to get on a better diet, to change her diet. And she did so. She smoked cigarettes, got her to calm down with that, especially when she got pregnant. She quit totally. So I do got to give her props for that. But, the thing was that when she would be hospitalized, the doctor's like, oh, we don't, we'll get you stabilized, but I don't know what it is. They thought she was making it up. And, come to find out later, like I said, a lot of the ways that I was treating her, unbeknownst to even me, but that's why I say you got to buy into faith sometimes, especially when you got a good feeling about things. But I was treating her for candidiasis, which is really basically an overgrowth of Candida albicans, a fungus. And, I didn't really realize that that's what I was doing, but but I know it now when I take a look at exactly what it was I was giving her. As she was taking coconut oil, a couple teaspoons, or beefing it up to a tablespoon, stuff like that, turmeric, baking soda, all these things that kill, a fungus. And she only had she only has one fallopian tube, and so she had a lot of tubal pregnancies. And so on the occasion when she actually got pregnant, we were excited. I was excited. It's my first child, right? And so extremely excited. And the thing is, we got a little nervous as time goes on because, we were concerned about, her health history. So that plays a huge role, right? So, on one occasion we have to go into the hospital early, right? I cannot make this up. Most High knows. Most High was there, witnesses, she's there. She was there. If we get along right now, she'll tell you. I ain't got to lie about this. Doctor comes in, she had already had a bad dream the night before. She had a dream that she lost our son and all of this different stuff, right? So the doctor comes in, he has this ominous tone, has these papers, charts, and photographs or whatever. And he's sitting up there and he's saying, and I bull crap you not. And he's like, well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but she may have, there's a 50% chance. And then before he can even get out the rest of the sentence, she's bawling out, crying. And she's like, I don't want to lose him. I don't want to lose my son, and all of this different stuff. And I'm like, baby, we're not going to lose him. And then sometimes I was like, Most High, what do I do? I just don't want to just give her words of encouragement. I want to be able to do something. Where, just like them sisters, where a black man. It's almost like she was saying that to me, but she wasn't saying it like that. But, it was just like, do something. And then I was like, let me see the charts. And because, she was convinced she wanted to take the Percocet for the pain. The pain was that bad, right? And because they were trying to prescribe a Percocet for the pain. And he's like, well, that's really all we could do right now at this moment in time, et cetera. And so they really had her mindset on losing the child. So I said, let me see them charts, man. And so he gave me the charts. He let me see him. And I was like, so what happens is obviously we know, well, I don't know if I said this already, but she had hyperemesis where, it's hard to keep down food and that's like extreme nausea and stuff like that. And then she also, had a subchorionic hemorrhage, right? And then, some pregnant women know about that too as well. A subchorionic hemorrhage is when the placenta, is basically where the implantation site loosens, and then when it loosens, there's this blood clot that is in between, in the chorionic membrane, and the placenta. And what doctors do in order to determine how successful the pregnancy may be is by judging the size of the clot versus the size of the child, right? And so that's what he did, and he felt like he came, since he felt like the size of the clot was about the same size as the baby. Of course, that decreases your chances of having a successful pregnancy. And so me knowing that, I was like, can I look at those? Can I look at that? And he looked at me. The look he gave me, like, how dare you, Negro? Like, what could you know? I've been going to school. You know how I dress. You know, to me, I definitely look thugged out to them. And I looked at the photograph and the scan, and I was like, I wasn't impressed. I said, that's more like 20-25%, buddy. And he double checks and looks. I swear I cannot make this up. I don't know what I was looking at. I may have been looking at another and came in here with the wrong. Yeah, go ahead and check that. And you should have saw the look on her face. She went from crying to like, that's my baby right there. And all of a sudden, she feeling better. And I felt so good. I really did. That was like one of the best moments of my life, because intelligence was actually, there was utility in what I knew. It just wasn't about cramming information, right? And, you know, I fast forward to seeing that picture that was just sent to me. And the thing that made me emotional was that, you know, I was so proud when my son was born, you know. And now I look at his photo and I look at 2020. And I look at what these demons are trying to do to us, and I can't help but to ask myself, what did I get him into? Because that's the same thing he's going to ask himself when he get older. You know, that's the same thing we've asked ourselves at one point in time when knowledge escaped us. I'm finna get right into it, because I think y'all think it's a game. Y'all think, like we said before, that we was harping on the Tuskegee syphilis experiments because it was just to highlight that because that's the most recent. And sometimes when you take a look at what's going on in your own backyard, it helps to elucidate the danger that you and your people are in. But unbeknownst to you, time and time again, you have been convinced that there is some humanity and a species that are ruling, the ruling class. Let's just say that, because I hate to try to stigmatize everyone, but I have to look at it for what it is. It's a system, right? And we're going to show you the system to show you just how inherently evil it is, because it is their nature to do what they're doing. Okay? And so this documentary, like I wanted to say, you know, that before we show it, 1976 Copyright Act, you know, this is for purposes of commentary and analysis, and I just hope that, I'm just sorry, y'all. I'm trying to get through it. Y'all know I'm a lot crisper than this. Just bear with me, because I got to get deep, so I got to get my brain together. But this is hard. That's why I didn't do this. I swear on everything I love, it was so hard for me to do this, because I was going to do this before I did the last video. You know, because I knew this was a nail in the coffin, but every time I do it, I can hardly talk through it. I can hardly get through it. So y'all bear with me. Y'all know what y'all get from me. Y'all know y'all get the best, you know. So I'm just trying to, because I would hate for people who view this the first time to not think that. So, like, we're just going to get into it. I'm going to show the receipts first. But like I said,
to help finance it all, Flint's state-appointed managers had another plan.
It has been 5 decades since Flint used the river for drinking water. Today, they open up the gates to start that process again.
Instead of staying on the Detroit water supply while the pipeline was being built, the city would temporarily get its water from the Flint River.
Until a new water pipeline is finished from Lake Huron.
That decision, without a vote from the city council, would force the city to activate an old water treatment plant that had barely been used in half a century.
I certainly still expected that the same safeguards would be in place no matter what the drinking water source was.
But inside the plant, we've learned that a foreman named Matt McFarland was having concerns.
He said we're not ready. He said the plan wasn't ready. The funding just wasn't there. The staffing wasn't there. There was a lot that would need to be done, and it would take time.
McFarland died in 2016, but while working at the water plant, he regularly confided in his sister, Tanya Petrella. This is the first time she's spoken publicly about her brother's concerns.
He would call me and he would just be so upset, and he would leave me messages that were just frantic, like, Tanya, you have to call me right away. Please call me right away. I mean, he knew that they weren't ready for this.
As the deadline approached, McFarland expressed his concern.
We're gonna fast forward to 1430. I'm giving you these benchmarks just in case that you want to keep track of this and go and that'd be something that you would be able to reference, or just take the opportunity to watch the whole documentary if you can. That's the thing that I would recommend. But we're going to 1430 right now. Hardest part.
Of Legionnaires, and 3 people had died. Jasmine McBride had been lucky. After 3 months in the hospital, she was able to go home.
When I got out, I had to learn how to walk, talk, eat. I mean, it was just like being reborn all over again.
The oxygen, you're on that all the time, or do you ever get to take it?
Sometimes I'll take it off just to see myself, but I want it all the time.
Yeah.
Her battle with Legionnaires left her heart and lungs weakened. Her kidneys were severely damaged. When we met her in 2018, she needed a transplant, but wasn't healthy enough to be eligible for one.
You just had dialysis just now, right? Your lungs are clear. They've cleared out the fluid.
Her doctor, Marcus Zervos, had been treating a chronic skin infection that her weakened immune system couldn't control.
My goal with you is to try to get those wounds healed up so that you can get your transplant.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing with this is tissue grafting. I'm really happy with them. They are doing a lot better.
I'm ecstatic.
If I can get them healed over a little bit more, I'm going to get you.
She said she was ecstatic, brothers and sisters. Isn't that the typical response from us? Just to be happy that they helping us out of some chaos that they put on us. Did you see the sores, the discoloration? Because remember when we talked about those ways of genetic manipulation? That the bacteria that they found, what it does to destroy the envelope, what envelops the DNA, which is melanin. And it got past their melanin. Therefore, there you see the discoloration. And how they say where her immune system can't respond. Of course, because the melanin is the immune system. Legionnaire's disease, bacterial infection in the water, waterborne disease. And they knew that all they had to do was sanitize the water. And they decided not to because we already know that was a genetically modified form of that bacteria. That's why they let it go on, just like they let Tuskegee go on. And that's what they were dying from. Here. So don't talk about just Tuskegee. Don't make it seem like it was just lead in the water. And that's why I say, I was like, man, every time, this is what I talk about when I say, man, you're not telling the truth till you piss everybody off. Because even me, I find myself pissed off because what the fuck was I doing? What was I doing? Distracted like everybody else. Not to say that it was a totally bad distraction because, look, you see I'm conscious, so my music was conscious. I was doing music and I was thinking like, yeah, all I got to do is make it to the next level. Even though I seen that there was some things going on in the industry, which you knew just did not align with your thought process, especially if you're truly conscious, if you're a revolutionary warrior, it just go hand in hand. I've had some very close opportunities to get in that game. You see what I'm saying? And then yet, it dawns on you like, you're incompatible with the energy. And I'm out there trying to do my thing. And in 2014, as it started off, we ignored it. Just like we ignore any other calamities and deep, dark challenges that our people are confronted with because it ain't affecting us directly. But we feel it. We know something wrong, but now it's at our doorstep. Now it's unavoidable. And see, so what you're seeing is that bacteria that was in the water, what did it do? It attacked the melanin. You see, because we've already went over those things. And I think that obviously if you need to be brought up to speed, go ahead and check out a couple of those last videos. But see, this is, I'm going real deep on this one. So I don't have a lot of time because what I'm going to try to do is take a complex organ and then break it down and simplify it for our brothers and sisters. And, and also to be, to let you know every facet of it, because we're letting them know too as well. We know your science and your science ain't all that at all. Actually, it's pretty weak. See, I work from the Most High. I came and I thought over this. It didn't take me long because the emotions was intact. The emotions was there, and I'm able to look at it. And once I looked at it, I scoffed. Okay? Because, see, this is one thing that you have to understand. Is that they understand that there's key difference. We already said that with the skin, the melanin, and you know how it's key to our immune system and so forth and so on. And how earlier, a lot earlier, they understood this too as well. I'm finna read. We're gonna keep it Michigan, all Michigan too, because you see the Michigan running through my veins. You know, I'm out here. Shouts out to everybody in this state. You know, you see your boy Warren for you. It's a lot of warriors here, and shouts out to fan from Detroit who got in contact with me too as well. So he, you know, they know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that, you know, Michigan blood go through your veins because these cities are so close to one another. I mean, the furthest city away, obviously, it'd be Detroit. You know, about 246 miles away from where we at right now. But you know, when you get over to West Michigan, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, all they interconnected. They not too far away from each other. But I digress. Now this is Some Racial Peculiarities of the Negro Brain by Robert Bennett Bean, instructor in anatomy, University of Michigan, from the Anatomical Laboratory of Johns Hopkins University, right? So we telling you, he wrote these papers in the early 1900s and stuff. He done went through, you know, dissecting hundreds of brains, especially African-American women, African-American men, children, and infants. Okay, that's why you see I don't get to Johns Hopkins University. Remember what we talked about before. Some of the ways they knew, even if you had the melanin that enveloped the nucleus of Europeans, and that it was a protective layer there that they had a hard time getting through. You knew what hard time that they had incurred, or the hard time they incurred when they tried to get through that melanin that was protected by that black-brown combination. So, you know, with that being said, that's one of the reasons why I don't get to Johns Hopkins University, because those children there, you know, those sick kids, they love it because, you know, their cells are compromised, and they're able to get through, genetically modify, and come out with these new diseases and be adept at the biological and chemical warfare, because you see, we've already established this is what they do in their labs. They never come out with nothing good for humanity. So I'm tired of you buying into this idea that they're in there trying to do something for you. All right, so let's read what he has to say. And we really gonna break it down, brothers and sisters. This one I'm finna get deep. You know how I do. I'll never disappoint, I hope. Now he says this. He says, it is generally understood, and I'm explaining all this. I'm gonna go along. It's generally understood that the posterior association center is objective. Okay, posterior association. And right now he's talking about the back of the brain, the posterior. Okay, while the anterior is the front, is subjective. So the posterior, you know, you're talking about the occipital lobe, you're talking about the temporal lobe back there, and you're talking about the cerebellum. All right, and then the anterior, you're talking about the frontal lobe. But we'll get into that. I'm gonna break that down. I'm gonna try to do it as quickly as possible, and hopefully, you know, you guys get the gist of it. Now, the relative differences found in the association centers of the two races is suggestive in relation to the known characteristics of the two. So basically he's saying that the characteristics of these races account for these differences in the sizes of the anterior and the posterior centers, you know, of the brain. Okay. Let me continue. Okay. Then we're going to go down because I have a whole lot, you know, time to read this, but I gave you who the guy was, what the paper was, and this is on page 379, so you can go read this whole, you know, paragraph if you want to. Now, he says, you know, and he's talking about the character of the Negro. He's talking about how, yeah, the Negro is emotionally, you know, inexperienced because he's emotionally driven. You know, of course, he makes a good artist, you know, good, adept at music and dancing and all of this different stuff, but he's not a great thinker. You know, the reason being is because his frontal lobe isn't as big. And you know, this man has dissected hundreds of brains, but I'm going to tell you what they did. You know, of course, these beings have to make their weaknesses strengths. And of course, our strengths weaknesses. So, I'll get into that and I'll explain how they did that. And so he says that because the whole posterior part of the brain is large and the whole anterior portion small, this being especially true in regard to the anterior and posterior association centers. He says Flechsig's work favors the conclusion that the gyrus rectus may have a definite relation to smell, and you know, he goes off into these different aspects of the brain, but you know, you get the gist of it when he's talking about how the reason for our behavior is because of the small frontal lobe in the small anterior part of our brain, and which would be the frontal lobe, and then the large posterior sections, which would be the temporal lobe and the occipital lobe, vision, and also the cerebellum. Now, this is the thing. Let's go to the brain right quick, and let's tell you exactly what he was doing and why that's a mistruth and why we got to understand this stuff right now, you know, candidly. Now, let's talk about the brain right quick and just show you. Let's just give you. Let's help you to imagine. Let's visualize this right quick. Now just imagine the brain real quick, because I want you to be visual. A lot of times I don't want you to just see. You've seen this a million times, so you need to be able to visualize this, brothers and sisters. Okay, so in the embryonic stages of development, what happens is that in the embryo there is called this exoderm germ layer, right? Exoderm, exo meaning out, derm meaning skin. So it is literally skin that forms, and out of the skin, a brain starts to form. This is called the neural crest. And the neural crest, right, starts to birth these temporary cells which turn into melanocytes. We all know what melanocytes are, right? It turns into cranial cartilage and bone. It turns into smooth muscle. It turns into the enteric nervous system, which is called your second brain, because that's what connects to your intestines, okay? So that's what it literally starts to create the brain out of skin, okay? So there was this guy by the name of, no, we're going to go back and forth, but we're going to make this quick. It was a guy by the name of Paul MacLean. He came up with the triune philosophy. This is where people get the reptilian brain from. Okay, the triune philosophy states that, there's 3 parts to the brain, and he proclaimed that they evolved independently, right? And that is the the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. Okay, and what he suggested was that the basal ganglia, which sits underneath the forebrain and at the top of the midbrain, right? He said that that's the reptilian brain, but really it's symbolic because that represents primal emotions, all right? Sleep, eating, and fucking, if you will, all right? And the desire to be in your instincts, okay? And so the thing is that eventually he said then what developed next was the midbrain, which would be kind of like more or less like the limbic system. But we know the limbic system would be, I believe, the hypothalamus, the hippocampus, the amygdala, and, another structure. And, that's basically what to me would be the diencephalon. The diencephalon, all right, is formed from the forebrain. So basically the forebrain shows, because then, like we talked about, in that embryonic stage of development, you just got one mass. And then in the 8th week of in utero, what happens is that it turns into 2 hemispheres by that time. Okay, so you're seeing how the brain has to develop. It turns and evolves, right? And then the processes of evolution, these different parts of the brain begin to form, right? That's why they always keep track of your baby's brain development. Okay, and so let's go back. So what we're talking about is that, what the hindbrain or the limbic system, because how they term it is this, because there's a lot of terms, but we're gonna go through it. The forebrain is called the prosencephalon. Okay, and that's just a term for the forebrain as it mutates in the embryonic stages of development. It then mutates into the diencephalon, right? Or what I'd like to call also the limbic system. But the diencephalon is the hypothalamus, the thalamus, the epithalamus, and the subthalamus. Okay, the epithalamus has like the pineal gland and all of that different stuff. But that's the interior part of the brain. The interior part of the brain. And then you have what's called the neocortex. So that interior part is called the paleomammalian or the limbic system or the diencephalon. And then you have the neomammalian, which is the neocortex. And the neocortex is what? The cerebral. That's the outer part. That's what people are most familiar with. When you see an image of the brain, that outer part, those lines in the big outer part, that's called the cerebral. That's called the cerebrum. And it's basically the cerebral cortex because it's split up into 4 lobes. What did we say before? The frontal lobe, okay? Then you have the parietal lobe, the temporal lobes, and the occipital lobe. And then you have the cerebellum at the back, okay? And then the cerebellum is not a part of the, it's called your other brain, your little brain. That's what cerebellum literally means, little brain, okay? It accounts for 10% of your brain's weight, but it accounts for 50% of your brain neurons. That little bitty brain back there. So we go back to this triune brain or the reptilian brain. What we have in common with the reptilian brain is that the reptilian brain has the brain stem and the cerebellum, but its cerebellum is not as advanced. Okay? And the cerebellum is what? It's your motor control. But what they've also established is also about your emotional coordination. You develop deep, long-lasting relationships. You have a sense of humanity. This is one of the reasons why they say that black people can dance. This is where your rhythm and all of that stuff come from. It doesn't account for your actions. It just fine-tunes your actions is what the cerebellum does. Okay, so reptiles don't have one. Their midbrain is more advanced. They're more instinctive. They're more killers. You see, the cerebellum is what almost gives you that soul. You see what I'm saying? So like I said, it's in the nature of the being. Because what you have to understand about the brain, which crucial, which they told you about, is like what? It is, you have these two different type of nervous systems. We're going to break it down just right quick because you have to understand that we know what we're talking about. And I'm going to bring it all together. Trust me, brothers and sisters. So you have these two nervous systems, the central nervous system. What is the central nervous system? The central nervous system houses the brain and the spinal cord. What's so special about the spinal cord? Because we're going to get into it. I got another video to show because like I said, I'm going to title this and I'm doing this for my Superman. I called him my Superman as he made it through. And this is why he's my Superman. And so the spinal cord, the spinal column has 33 interlocking and independent columns. 33, that number. That's why 33 is so special. 33-degree Masons. Yeah, I'm about to bust it all the hell open. Okay? And some people who are adept already know this. Okay, and so you have the spinal cord and the brain protected by these meninges or these membranes. We all know that be the dura, the arachnoid, and the pedum. You know, and these membranes protect it. And so these, what you have to understand is that that's the inside of you. See, you make neural or nerves, so to speak, nerves or tracks. They're called tracks inside your central nervous system. They're not called nerves. Nerves are what your peripheral nervous system has to connect to this body. You see what I'm saying? You have nerves, and so they have a set of command. That's what's called your autonomous nervous system. It's a part of your peripheral nervous system, outside of your, that's what peripheral means, outside. It's outside of your central nervous system. And it is autonomous, which means automatic. You don't have to think about the stuff you do, breathing, and your organs working and all that. That's what's outside of you. That's your peripheral nervous system, your autonomous nervous system, which is split up into the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous systems. But that comes from the peripheral, and then the peripheral is still interconnected to the central nervous system. But this is the thing, like I said, the nerves, these nerves are what? Bundles of axons. Axons are what? Extensions of neurons. So it's like cables. Hence, that's why I said they're mimicking the technology that's already in you. Right? And so the reason why I brought up the nervous systems is to show you that's what they said before. You keep talking about, yeah, I'm in this flesh, this organism, the skin. Remember, the skin forms first. The brain comes out of the skin. Okay? So it's connected by the peripheral nervous system, but you have to understand that you control the central nervous system. Whatever connections you want to make, you have a free slate. It's not like your peripheral where it's set in stone, where it connects you to everything and it's autonomous. Then it said, God, the Most High said, I'm going to make this automatic, but inside I'm going to let you do whatever you desire. Okay? So that's what you have to understand about the brain. All right, so when he was talking about how, oh yeah, with the, the frontal lobe, ours is much bigger. But what he was taking away from is that they knew that they had to make up for what they know they didn't have and make it appear to be a superior quality. When the cerebellum is known, they don't know much about it, obviously, and you know that. And that's when they just thought it was for motor control. Now they're like, oh, it's also for emotional coordination, being able to develop long-lasting relationships. And how do we know that? Because there is a disease called, or genetic disorder called cerebellagenesis. Cerebellagenesis is when you are born without a cerebellum. It's 9 known cases. And what happened? These people have no emotions. They can't develop long-lasting relationships. And it does affect motor coordination. Some of them can walk, but some of them have to walk with canes. But they can't, a lot of them don't have emotion. They're like serial kids. They wouldn't care if you dropped on your head dead. You see what I'm saying? That's what you have to understand. That's what you have to know. That's what's important for your understanding. Now, I want to show y'all exactly what I'm talking about when I say that and to say all of this. What I said all of this for. And I just got one more video to play.
Google Fi, a phone plan by Google. New family features.
Sorry for this is ad. Can't even get past it.
Data budget and set digital ground rules with Family Link, all at no extra cost. Switch to Fi today at fi.google.com.
Hate it.
You can embody the best of both worlds. The dream your mother and I dedicated our lives to preserve. People of Earth are different from us, it's true. But ultimately, I believe that's a good thing. They won't necessarily make the same mistakes we did. Not if you guide them, Cal. Not if you give them hope. That's what this symbol means. The symbol of the House of El means hope. Embodied within that hope is the fundamental belief in the potential of every person to be a force for good. That's what you can bring them.
Why am I so different from them?
Earth's sun is younger and brighter than Krypton's was. Your cells are drunk in its radiation, strengthening your muscles, your skin, your senses. Earth's gravity is weaker, yet its atmosphere is more nourishing. You've grown stronger here than I ever could have imagined. The only way to know how strong is to keep testing your limits.
Now, why did I play that? I'm finna let you know in the second segment.